Okay, I think we are live, Sonja. I hope that this time
Well
it's
done.
going to work. Nice, at
Excellent.
least to finish the end of the year with a working live session. So yeah, wonderful. Welcome everyone. I'm quite excited for our last session of the year. Today I have Sonja Markovic with me. She's founder and CEO or co-founder and CEO of Evitat. And we've just been chatting before. I've been working together with Sonja since end of 22. And we become quite good friends as well. So I'm very excited to have her here today. And your Evitat platform is such a great tool, and you're working on such important things. And I think it's amazing to share with the broader community what it is. And I think today we decided the session might be a bit more geared towards professionals to some degree. So designers, builders, architects, or other people in the industry. But nonetheless, even if you're a homeowner or want to know more about sustainable design, the session is also for you. And but in the future, we might do another session as well that is a bit more geared towards homeowner. Um, but having said that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over shortly to Sonja, because I would like her to give a bit of an intro, who she is, how she got into this sustainability field, and to give us a bit of an intro about what Evitat is and how professionals can use it. And then, yeah, if you have questions in between, just put them in the comment sections, and we're going to answer them at the end. However, if you happen to watch the recording, please also feel free to put questions on the bottom and we can answer them later. Okay, wonderful.
Awesome.
Hi, Sonja. Over to you.
Thank So first of all, thank you, Simona, for the invite. And yes, we have been working since quite a while together. Simona is also technical advisor to Evitat, and I absolutely love her approach to make homes really in some ways, affordable in the concept phase, but also throughout the maintenance, running costs, everything that includes actually the wholesome approach. So I've learned a lot from Simona, from her work, from her projects. We are working with Reimagined Habitat as well, very closely together. So maybe a couple of words. Why are we actually doing all of this? We moved to Australia a while ago, and we built actually a home in Queensland. And when we built the home, we were told by a lot of neighbors, oh yeah, like cyclone hasn't been seen for years. Some of them told us, the last 20 years, nothing happened, and it's just a drought, which is a headache and everything. However, since we finished building, we pretty much had every 2 years a major climate event. And I'm saying that we went pretty much through every scenario over the last 10, 15 years, multiple heavy cyclones with category 3, 4, bordering on 5, and lots of floodings and everything. And you do start thinking deeply about where your home is located, what is it exposed to, how it functions as a real home, not just as a building, and yeah, and how you can improve it over time. And however, 2017 we had a massive cyclone going through, very, very slow, and it caused major damages to the property. And then what we wanted to do to make sure is building back better in that way. And what happened actually during that time was that we started investigating materials. We learned a lot about materials, but it also felt as doing five PhDs at once. And we thought, if that's the case, and we had very little support at the appointed builder, for example, they didn't care much. versus the insurance was actually really supportive. And so we handled all of this by ourselves. And it felt really elaborating, really hard to do. And we thought if that's the case for everyone, there's no surprise that it's so difficult to improve homes along the way. But even thinking, if that's also the case for new builds, like it's no surprise that we are actually on the trajectory rather of creating like homes that are really not ready to meet the climate scenarios of tomorrow. And we're in Melbourne, so going through winter times, it is freezing cold. Coming from Germany, Simone and I, we had plenty of these discussions over time. And we decided we come with a very strong tech background. We have been working with technology for the last 2 decades and more, but we had also the opportunity to work alongside with architectural groups of clients, had a really good perspective on their pain points in terms of sourcing solutions. And we combined all that knowledge with our lived experience and had consultancies, for example, like Simone and many more. And and built up a logbook for sustainable homes as in terms of surfacing the good decisions and being able actually to attach this to, for example, whenever you're selling a property, to make this visible to future buyers. But from that point, it broadened the entire solution into a platform. And now we are offering basically a data platform for vetted materials and products for the built environment. And with that, there's a built-in specification tool. I will show and walk you quickly also through. And we are also working on a very exciting component, which is a building passport that very easily can be used to model scenarios within various aspects, from energy efficiency to even embodied emissions, if someone is really deeply interested in that part. But the idea here is really to be able actually to connect the good decisions to, for example, incentives like green finance opportunities or even insurance. Because I think you, Simona, or Reimagine Habitat had scratched actually on that topic previously as well. And we also believe that insurance will have a major impact on the market of properties and how they get valued in future. So it's quite important probably to consider that with every single renovation point, or even if you are building new, and finding actually also the right professional and designer to support you along the way.
Yep, nice. And just one little thing, and I'm sure many homeowners or professionals have found the same thing. When you want to do something a little bit more sustainable or green, or you want to look at materials that are healthy or sourced sustainably, it's a minefield out there. If you go to a manufacturer, they all say we're green, we're sustainable, and whatever. And it, so either you believe it all, or if you go down the rabbit hole, and then you have to search for all their credentials, and is it true, and do they have certificates, and or is it just a weird claim? And then I think that's something where like amazing was a platform like Evitat comes in, because you have done all the vetting, and so and we have spoken about it before, that if you look then for products, you can straight away see these are their green credentials, or this is the certificate they are working on. Or vice versa, you can say, okay, I want a cladding that has these and these credentials, and then you get a list with them. So you don't have to worry about, is it really true what they're claiming? They actually have been checked and vetted, which is...
Yeah, absolutely. So one approach was we are adding a vetting process to it that exactly like Simona was describing, Any of these sustainability claims, we are asking for the evidence. And instead of you having to work through an EPD, which can be, for example, fairly complex, we extract and digitalize the key information bits and providing that as a very accessible way to data, for example, within the platform, for example, for your architect, for your building designer to work with. There's an integrated client dashboard that automatically also adds that information and really helps driving these conversations even further. So, but along that way, maybe to mention, we also collect data on healthy building materials and building solutions. That means also, in particular, things that are not off-gassing and free of toxic chemicals or substances. We also collect data on efficiency, water, energy efficiency, and even circular, like, for example, criteria for reuse, circular recycled components, material flows, like all of this is basically aggregated in the platform and then can be used to really set clear goals, and also to look into materials, for example, that are specified, and to make sure that you don't need to do all that effort to collect all of that outside, which can be really time consuming and a lot of effort. So we also keep an eye on the accuracy of the data. That's particularly important probably also for design professionals when they work alongside or maybe under a certain sustainability framework, and they need to have that assurance for compliance reason, for example. So there will be fairly soon, for example, also a report generation available, and you can basically submit or even run a submission readiness check. Maybe I can showcase that quickly. So this is the view into the platform. And if we are looking at materials, for example, even within the results here in the library, you can very easily see emission and circular material information. And then in this case, this product doesn't necessarily come with energy efficiency ratings, but there's also, for example, thermal conductivity, health related compositions, for example, that it's red list free, formaldehyde free, which certifications have been added. So all of these data points, this is a view for design professionals, and then they can basically decide if that's something the client has maybe during the brief really put forward. Simone, we talked a lot actually around health reasons, to put an eye on material choices, for example, but also system solutions. So there's a growing, really good growing amount of products moving in every week. And we have also the resilience part that puts forward, for example, if a product or material is fire resistant, fire rated, or termite resistant, which is also quite important, in particular when we are building in areas that are prone to termites or rodents. It goes into a specification tool, which we call material board. And from here, it can actually generate that client dashboard, which then again has the opportunity actually to drive these conversations, because as a designer, you can really highlight certain co-benefits based on the scope and the objectives of the project.
And maybe if I can jump in there, because we had lots of discussions about it as well. So we, as a design practice, we used to use kind of a specification program or app where we would put in all the material, or mostly finishes, all the finishes we used. And, you know, you have your image, you have your product name, your product description, you have the supplier, you might add the cost of something. But that's kind of where it stopped. So there was no green credential, there was no certifications, there was no info about anything with health, efficiency, or whatnot. And so now that this is here, it kind of replaces that old system or completely takes over, because you can combine those things. So you can, and that probably Sonja might show us as well, you can still do all your custom things. So, you know, you don't have just to rely on what's in the platform, because the platform is still growing. So you can say, okay, I want to use this tile finish, I want to use whatever, this tab, you add your pictures, you add your description, whatever it is. Alternatively, you can say, oh, I want to use tiles. You search the platform first, what tiles are already there. And if you need one with green credentials or green tech, you search that. Or if you, anything, you just search. And if you can't find it, you just add your own. And then that way, you kind of have your specification list with the nicer things. Maybe don't want to call it the bling things, but the more the visual things. But it's a nice tool to combine it, that you can actually add all the health credentials and to have it all in one place, which are
Absolutely. Exactly. So you can, through the custom product, you can actually add either manually or use even an assistant tool that actually fetches all the information automatically and adds it into the segment where you want to add maybe a custom product. And it creates a second library of the products you regularly may be adding to the projects. And you can also invite a team member if you are a practice of multiple, for example, team members, you can invite them all together and participate and collaborate actually on projects, of course. So in this way, maybe I also showcase a little bit what we are currently working on. So this is, for example, a good example. It's an example of where we are heading. Let me put it that way. So when you're looking at materials, it's one part of the story. Why we are doing this, to bring in actually technology and automation, is the early design phase, and working with a really good building designer or architect in this phase is, or can actually really improve the outcomes and create an incredible building, home, and really serve you for decades to come. And to make this easier, in particular for that phase, we are also thinking that it requires actually support on both sides. Usually, and traditionally, this is something where materials are maybe not often discussed in details. Here and there's maybe some interior design parts discussed and specified, but the materials in particular also for the thermal envelope are actually critical. So it will define the way how you are thinking about about your home in the running costs, and also in the long term, in the future outlook, actually also around resale value. Because what we have seen is definitely an increase on resale value for homes that have actually low maintenance, low running costs, homes that perform really well. And that's how we think the future of property value will really shape and change also. That means also having something where you can actually easily attach that information for example, for a real estate agent or other purposes, even to present that information to your bank or to your insurance. That's where we are really automating and streamlining the process. This version is a little bit, I think, more targeting the workflow between a designer and their clients within the entire process. And it allows really to model, for example, even circular use and reuse, healthy human and building standards, energy efficiency. So the more information gets added over that process and time, the more accurate these numbers and outcomes will become. But the nice way is also the tool enables actually a modeling, for example, on running costs and maintenance costs. And maybe also to mention, it comes with the idea really to be a building passport that also enables, for example, product passports with a range of really great information added. And in future, that can, for example, enable compliance for, let's say, for certain sustainability frameworks. It can also integrate a whole of emission challenge really to generate. We have an example here already to generate a scenario with the project you are running, and you can set a scope, really look into the different period analysis, pull in your materials either from the specification tool, or you may want even to add a couple of other sources. And wherever we might have a gap, we will then use databases to basically fill in the gap. And we are relying here at the moment on neighbors databases. And then it completes the whole view and picture, and it can create an entire model set. So I won't go much into the details here, but it gives a little bit an outlook where we are heading in future and how that actually can connect to touch points to finance, touch points to insurance. Because if you can surface that information, you are more likely to be seen as someone who can actually, for example, utilize the green finance opportunities. And Simone, you have run a couple of webinars on that topic. That is actually a really great way maybe to even pack all the good things and get a full finance product on your mortgage, for example.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like you said before, more and more bank and insurance companies are taking whatever resilient homes and climate risk into account. And it's not there yet, but at one point in the future, it probably will come to a point that if your house is more at risk, whatever through location or climate risk, that your interest rates might go higher. So at some stage in the future, if you can prove those things and can show what your rating is, what your performance is, that your external cladding is whatever fire rated, then the chances are quite likely that you pay lower premiums, or at least lower premiums for your insurance.
Yes, exactly. Because what we are pulling also together is the location. It's meant to be built or like even a renovation. And considering what that scenario looks like, maybe in 10 years' time, 20 years' time. And it helps also, for example, the architect, the building designer, really to do a comprehensive or to create actually a comprehensive approach to the entire design process, and really to consult on to make sure we have a future-ready building in the market that can, well ahead of its time, support the purpose of the building, and really support the family, the occupants in future. And having that assurance that you might not be exposed to rising insurance costs, rising energy costs, it will play a huge part of the entire like even the budgets you might need to calculate for the SM future. We already see in some areas like a fair bit of increase in insurance policies, for example, like costs on insurances. There's of course areas that are red marked. At the moment, what we see across the nation is in areas where you have the frequency of events, it's harder to even get insurance. That will also play a really vital role, for example, in future, if you can even get insurance, even to build something new. But this is exactly where we think to understand the location better and the outlook on climate risk can really inform the building itself and the design, and really maybe even mitigate with some decision and choices the outcomes and that risk. So being able to support that process and these conversations are quite critical. And we will see, I'm pretty confident we will see in future here a lot of solutions emerging, because in the end, we will also, for example, a good example is really if you're thinking of homes in maybe more risk-prone areas, it really depends on the specific location and the material choices, design, for example, how that in combination works. And can you, for example, create a home that supports its entire energy supply on its own, but also generate actually enough maybe to offset some of these costs in the same way. So there's a lot of these solutions coming into the market, and platforms that supply actually that base data will be critical here, really to support that entire work process and the information needed actually to make these decisions and choices together.
And I guess one critical thing is, some people might even think, oh, what does it matter if the insurance won't insure? Or, some people might even think, oh, maybe it's not such a big problem. But the big problem is, if you need a mortgage from a bank, they want the property insured. So that means if you have no insurer that wants to insure your property, you can't get a mortgage. Which on the other hand means, now, if you're rich, you don't need a mortgage, you might not care. But say for normal everyday people, they will have a big problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one part of the story to all of this. The other part I've seen, for example, in Queensland, in that area, there was a temporary hold of new insurance opportunities. That means also, if you thought for a while, insurance is costly, I might drop out, you will have incredible difficulties to get back into an insurance. That's one risk of this. The other part is simply that even if you get an insurance, it will be quite expensive. So, and I'm not talking about 10, 20% increase. That could easily be, like double, triple of what you used to pay.
Mm.
And that's a significant expanse to consider if we are looking at, or have been looking at maybe average $2,000 to $3,000 per year. If that triples, you are looking at a 10,000 as minimum. And we see these tendencies globally unfolding. And maybe to bring that global perspective as well into the discussion, insurances are already pretty much globally distributing that risk. So that means also if there's a wildfire in, like what we saw, for example, in California, that risk and also the cost to it, that will be distributed. So that means also insurances will increase the more of these scenarios are happening. And you are really well advised then to work with a good building designer or architect or consultant who can advise what that means maybe on future, and who are well like equipped to consult on the entire design process to keep that in check and really to create a home that serves well actually the occupants. So I think there's a lot to maybe let go of the thinking and how we used to approach properties and buildings and the design phase. Maybe to rely a little bit less on the typical real estate recommendations for resale value, and rather to look into how can we work with a future-ready design that assures me to some degree that I won't face rising energy costs, I won't face too much pressure from rising insurance costs, because at some point it becomes unaffordable, as simple as that. And I think that's also where we see a new role of architects and building designers emerging. And it can't be, of course, that these professionals need to take on all of these topics onto their shoulders. So there needs to be platform solutions like Evitat who support that process and connect actually with the right players within the sector, so that it enables rather than become a blocker or something that overwhelms.
Yeah, sorry, I have a puppy here that goes berserk, so I've had to mute myself. Yeah, it's definitely shifting, or it needs to shift, and yeah, so there will be a bit of a education on kind of everyone involved. But like you said, the good thing is with a platform like Evitat, you can search for things and you don't have to search for days and days. There already are quite a few good products that you can readily use.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Simona also mentioned, the entire workflow can be supported through the platform because we, of course, allow custom products to be added to that specification tool I've shown. There's no barrier to this. It's simply that the products we have listed are vetted. That also keeps, like I said, that data really accurate because we have a couple of like features and tools in place that inform suppliers and manufacturers, for example, of outdated data automatically, so they can keep an eye on all of this. You need to understand, some suppliers might have hundreds of products, and maintaining all of that data is also a huge like side task to do. So the easier we make all these processes, the better actually we can support that entire shift in that sector. And that's exactly what we started building up, that data infrastructure that can support these workflows. And while the workflows might slightly be, I would say, reshaping and feel maybe a little bit unusual, they can actually open up great conversations with clients you might have not even expected, and that's probably something you can really support. You don't even need to be a deep expert in certain areas necessarily, because the information will flow over automatically, and you are also assured that all the vetted products come at minimum with 2 segments. We have 4 key segments. One is like circularity emissions, then energy, water efficiency, human health, and resilience. So it needs to meet 2 out of 4. And then that in itself has incredible quality already. So it really builds up on all of this. And I think it simply makes it a little bit less complex and easier maybe to pull and start these conversations with a client and really building up that agency. And usually, quite often, it's also the clients that have a strong interest in that. Maybe to mention, we have been working with Laura from Sydney, who is the owner of the Impossible House. And the Impossible House was featured last year at Grand Design. And the aim was really to create or to make a renovation happen on a small footprint with really conscious material choices and conscious design choices all in at once. Was a fair bit of a journey, but it created an incredible outcome, an incredible home, which is still featured quite often through social media. So if anyone wants to look at
definitely look it up, the Impossible House. She has great resources on her website, I think, as well, where she shares all the products and the things she went through, what worked, what didn't work, and her journey to go off-grid in a city, which was quite challenging.
Exactly. Challenging, but with the aim to be very, very transparent along that journey and to share every single step. And we are part of that. I think this is exactly where everything comes together. Having the right choice of architects or building designers on your side, then having actually the right mindset, being clear also how to set maybe these more holistic goals as well. What is really important to that project, and and then pulling it together can be tedious if you don't have that support, but this is exactly where we're making it a whole lot of easier.
But what I like as well, and that's something what we had spoken about earlier in the process a lot, when we were looking at Evitat and how to build it up, that often even when you look online for products, you might only find the big companies, the companies that have money for marketing, the companies that have money for amazing website and all the green certificates that cost a lot of money, versus on the Evitat platform, there are a few products or a few manufacturers that aren't that big. They're maybe still in the startup phase. They're working on their certificates or they're not come in yet, but still you vetted them and they're there, and they have a bit of a platform to be found by like-minded clients or like-minded homeowners, which I think is really nice, because it's quite hard for someone just coming up to compete with all the big guys. So that's one thing I really like as well.
Yes, absolutely. Like we will always have companies who are coming into the market, and not necessarily with totally new products. I'm talking here about sometimes products that come from Europe, have been decades in the market, but they entering, for example, Australia through that lens as a new entry, or we have also really strong side on all the local manufacturers, because we don't have many here in Australia. So a very supportive approach as well. They do, like, even if they don't have all the certificates at the moment, because these certificates can be really expensive for everyone. There's some options emerging in the market as well, but we do onboard them under a provisional badge, so that it becomes really clear. Often these are, for example, materials with so-called bio materials that are maybe, for example, like they could basically be agricultural waste and materials that are made basically out of that, or it could be really with natural ingredients. So all of this is supported, and we work then with the companies on getting then a clearer pathway, for example, to certain certifications that help them putting behind their claims also that evidence. But none of them are saying, yeah, we have done our own carbon emission calculation, this is the result or something. They simply say, look, 95% might be biogenic materials, and we know that it's carbon sequestering because it's maybe made of straw or other resources, hemp or something, and then that gets stated, but it gets also under that provisional badge. So it's very clearly a clear process, but also a supportive process for these companies as well. Yeah.
Maybe one thing what I wanted to mention as well, I guess especially for small design firms or or architects, that might be interesting, because it gets more and more interesting to get an idea how much carbon is there actually, how much carbon are we putting into our builds. And as some people know, it can be quite complicated to do the carbon calculations and whatnot. And some people do it in office, but others don't have it, or people don't want to pay for it. And so within the passport, there is a way then to see, how much carbon do you have actually used? What is the average home needing, and how much less do you have, or what impact do choices have? So all those things, you kind of get in graphics, and you can show to your clients, or can use for your own promotion or something. So that's a nice but a really good side effect, I think, as well, that you don't, if you don't have the resources or the knowledge to do a proper calculation, that this platform and passport can do that for you as well.
Yeah, exactly. So think of us as a very democratic access point to these tools. So democratizing it makes it accessible, and then on top comes really to have a stepper in it. If you have basic information of your design, you can add that already. There's of course the standard questions to it, as I've shown. We pull in the material list as well, and you can run these models, these calculations throughout the process, and increase the accuracy along the way. So I think this is a really important part. You don't necessarily need to do everything, as a linear way. You can, what we think is really supportive, if you can do these quick models along the way at various stages, because it will create options to have interventions. It will create maybe moments where you can discuss, should we maybe go with another solution, or should we maybe modify the design a little bit further?
Mm.
If you have transparency, for example, or if you are able to surface, for example, what that footprint looks like, you might all of a sudden have a client who thinks, oh, hang on, I wasn't aware of all of this. And now that I'm looking at it, it's actually not great because they might be totally conscious about the future of their children. And that triggers something, and then you can build up on all of this. But if you don't have these points of conversations, if you don't have any supportive data to showcase that, or it becomes a huge exercise with plenty of external consultants and a cost to the project. This is the key barriers, I think, in the market, to simply do business as usual, and then we end up with, unfortunately, Australia is building the largest homes globally, in particular as per occupant, and these homes cost a lot because they also consume a lot of materials in the build up. I mean, it's very obvious. And if we want to run these homes on a large square meter, of course, that is much more expensive than having something more moderate. And it works if you have a great designer at hand and you can collaborate together. Usually these outcomes are efficient in the build, but also in the long term on running cost and maintenance. So we don't want homes that cost a fortune, as Simone was often stating, that cost you literally the world along the way. So we want homes that are affordable, that have flexibility in itself, and that can also deal with increasing effects of climate change, but in particular of changing weather patterns, and what that drags along, whatever scenario we can think of. If we have the assurance that we know that to some degree we can actually bounce that off, I think that's already a big bonus point, because you don't want to end up in a scenario where you need to go through these risk elements or repairs consistently, because every 2-3 years something happens, and that will also, like I said, if insurances decide on maybe not insuring your area at some point, then it will basically become the center focus on how big is your home and what would be maybe repair costs in future to fix certain things. So there's a whole lot to consider, and the more fit for purpose it is, the better it will actually be.
Nice, nice. That's good. I think we covered a lot. Have a think, Sonja, is there something we should mention, something else about the platform or the usage, something we
Yeah,
haven't
so in general, at the moment we are inviting architects, building designers, consultant to join us for free, because we are still in a kind of beta phase, and we are working very closely here with feedback. So we have a couple of feedback tools integrated as well, and are really trying to keep everyone informed about the upcoming features, the rollouts. And we have, as a foundation partner, BDAA as well, with many building designers members. So if anyone is listening currently or something, there will be a quite a nice way to look into this partnership, because we are planning a couple of really exciting things as well with the platform. So yeah, I think the invite is here to join at the moment. There will be definitely specials going out down the track once we are ready really to convert everything. But it's a really good way also in the educational sense to get your head around, to feel actually supported, and simply to start these conversations with on projects with clients, or even with project leads, depending on what you are working on. It's definitely very helpful, and takes a lot of work, time away from the tedious areas, for example, collecting that data for compliance purposes, submission purposes. And that's something we think will really be a big game changer in a lot of these projects.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, lots of exciting things ahead. And yeah, I mean, AI is helping a lot with the background work, but things still go
Yes.
slowly. So it's
Yeah.
constantly growing and evolving, which is
Yes,
nice.
absolutely. Maybe one thing to mention is on the AI side, we have, for example, a feature apart from the modeling, we have a training module rolled out into the platform that allows designers to ask the materials, and think of this AI tool as a very, very secure way. It's not going outside, it's actually only limited to the data we provide. But there's a couple of layers to it. There's the product information layer. There's also industry information layer. We work also with great organizations like ThinkBrick together, supply, or will be starting rolling out also all their like member knowledge and the roadmaps and pathways they do with their members. And that's quite important, because if you want to drive an informed decision, you need to understand very quickly who is actually genuinely doing and walking that extra mile in that sector. And there's some incredible local companies here in Australia who are really, really putting a lot of effort to do the right thing and to make a difference. And we are very supportive of exactly that. And it's, the work can be absolute amazing, but if you are in an ocean of competition, global competition, with very cheap materials, often cheap also in the sense not necessarily just on cost, but I'm talking here in particular on quality, safetiness, and these things are really integral to the choices we all make, then it becomes a real struggle for these companies. So what we do is, by working with these industry organizations and their members together, we have a way basically to lift them out of that ocean, and through the process we do. And then it becomes a very great way actually to interact with all that data and information provided through that AI agent, for example, and being able to ask these questions. Can I, use it for that project? Or what is the embodied emissions on a 3-bedroom home maybe in future, once we have enough modeling information behind it. So that's definitely something we are already integrating, and there will be more of these kind of features, small calculators, material bills and so on coming in, so that it becomes a profound source of how to look at materials, and understanding also the co-benefits. Yeah, and I'm inviting everyone to definitely join. It's evitat.com.au. And if you want to run any project, you can definitely already find the great material choices and products already on the platform, the specification tool, and everything else I have showcased will be rolling out over the months.
Wonderful. No, that's great. Yeah, thanks so much, Sonja. That was amazing. And like I mentioned, so next year we're probably going to do one a bit more for homeowners as well, a session
Yeah,
how homeowners can actually use the platform to create their dashboards, because obviously not everyone is using a designer and architect. Some people are tinkering along in their home, which is amazing. So, we're here for them too. And yeah, otherwise I would say, yeah, thanks so much for joining me today. And I can't
thank
believe
you.
it's almost the end of the year. Well, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, definitely. Thank you, Simona, Reimagine Habitat, to being such great collaborative partners. Wishing everyone Merry Christmas. Have a great break. Relax and do a little bit of design and material sourcing if you have time. And yeah, I think look, we have a next new year coming up with a lot of opportunities. I always look at the positives. So let's bring these things together and make buildings future ready.
Sounds good. That's a good plan. Okay, thanks everyone, and we see you in the new year.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.